The NFL stands for not for long.
Set, Sharga and Armstead. Roll out, Walker still running out. Looks to the left, wide open, Thompson touchdown. Colin Thompson with the touchdown. There was nobody within 20 yards.
What a catch off the bobble. Colin Thompson scoops it up.
Lofting corner, the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. The first NFL touch for Colin Thompson is a score.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Colin Thompson Show. All things Philly this episode. So if you're not a Philly fan, click it off. If not, welcome to join us. Even if you don't like the Philly sports world, lots to discuss. Obviously, Phillies are done. Tough way to go out. Arizona showed up to Philly, beat Philly at their own game, beat them in their own park, and a ton of credit to them. You know, everyone's talking about the Philly collapse and all these different things, and yes, it was a collapse, but Arizona showed up and balled out. The Flyers, my Flyers, they're doing okay. They're hanging tough. Pretty impressive start. This is how they were going to be, and this is the problem. They're not bad enough to tank, and they're going to be in no man's land, and the division and conference they play on is stacked. There's like 2 or 3 bad teams, and the Flyers should be one of them, and trying to lose in an astounding number. We're going to get into the Sixers. We're going to get into the Eagles. But before we do, everything we do here at Not For Long Media is brought to you by the original Fudge Kitchen. Ever heard of them, Jack? And we are fortunate to partner with them, shipping fudge and sweet treats across the country, fudgekitchens.com. We're bringing some to the Sam Boner tailgate this weekend. Trays of fudge, trays of saltwater taffy. If you're going to the Eagles game this weekend, swing by and see us. Not For Long Media is going to be there hanging out, raising money for an awesome cause, showcasing a little fudge kitchen, eating some fudge, Sam boning some fudge, and a little saltwater taffy too, may I add. And then also, swing by, see us, donating to the Ronald McDonald House of Philadelphia. All things Philadelphia episode here. Really excited for that. I'll be at the Temple Navy game on Saturday too, so that's cool. So an all Philly weekend, we have Larry Flowers and Fair But Firm with Larry Flowers, a new show with us here at Not For Long Media. He'll be joining us. Avenue Steaks live show Sunday morning before the Birds game. Fun stuff. So super excited for all things we have going on with Philadelphia and all things we have going on with Fudge Kitchen. Fudgekitchens.com. Ship it right to your door if you can't get to the store. All right, Jack, before we get into the fun stuff, the Philadelphia Eagles, and then we're going to send it to Mike Gill after this because Mike and I broke down the previous game for the Eagles. We broke down the trade deadline, and we broke down a little bit what's coming ahead with the Cowboys game, 4:25 start in South Philadelphia. Please check the box for us here, if you will. I'm excited about the Sixers. I'm excited. I'll be honest with you. I will tune in now. Not that I was that big of a James Harden fan. I just do better with a more of a college model. I hate to say it, but like high energy, spry young players and Tyrese Maxey, and I think Joel Embiid's exciting to watch. So they got younger. They're probably going to get rid of some of these guys they traded for. I'm going to assume is some trade bait, maybe. I don't know. You're going to talk about that some more. Open up some cap space. James Harden's out. They got some draft picks. What say you, Jack Connell? What do you think of the trade? And then what do you think of the future of the Sixers?
I think it was a very great trade for the 76ers. I think they've really knocked this one out of the park. I mean, you're looking at, you bring in, I mean, it's pretty much cap fillers, what they got back asset-wise. Their bench is very deep. It just makes them probably the deepest they've ever been in the Joel Embiid era. You bring back Robert Covington, who actually started for the Clippers a little bit. He's a big part of their team. Nick Batum, he's getting up there, but he's still a very solid 3-and-D type player. KJ Martin's a really good young guy. I mean, like I said, he only has 1 or 2 years in the league, but he has a lot of potential. I mean, he wasn't really talked about much compared to the Terrence Manns and the other players like Bones Highland and stuff that were kind of being touted around in trade rumors. But the other big thing is you get off PJ Tucker's contract too. PJ wasn't playing bad whatsoever, but he's getting up there. I'm pretty sure he's 40, if not soon to be 40. And like you said, they open up between $50 and $65 million in cap space this summer, and they bring in 3 first-round picks. The main of that is the Clippers' unprotected 2028 first-rounder, which it's not going to be in Philly till 2028. It probably won't be in Philly till 2025. It's pretty much they are opening an ability. I mean, the free agency is okay, but I see it more as a window of if a team wants to let go of a player and they want to start to rebuild, they can just bring them in and not have to worry about finagling the cap. All of the players they brought in are 1-year contracts. They're going after the season. So either they flip them right back around in a trade this season, or this offseason a player becomes available and they just absorb them with that draft capital, sending it to whoever, whether it's Zach LaVine, whoever it may be. But I mean, and then there's the flip side. You bring in a player of that cap space, and then you have 3 picks to spare and bring in somebody else too. So, I mean, the way they're going to finagle it is they have Tyrese Maxey's a restricted free agent. So they're going to they basically told Tyrese Maxey, we're going to use this cap to bring in guys. And then afterwards, we'll sign you to a max contract. He's well worth it. He's averaging like 30 points per game. He was Eastern Conference Player of the Week. He looks sensational. So it's just a matter of him trusting them and them working the cap and his bird rights to bring him in over after they bring in whoever. Maybe there's OG Anunoby. There's a couple other guys that could be free agents. So a lot of exciting things in Philadelphia. I mean, this offense looks sensational. They're moving the ball around. It's a night and day difference from Doc Rivers' system. I talked about before, Doc Rivers is very 1A, 1B with Harden, Embiid, whoever it may be. This is a lot of motion, a lot of passing, a lot of the ball in Tyrese Maxey's hand and letting him do what he does best without any interruptions, and it's working. I mean, this team, if the right move, they are right back up there with Milwaukee and Boston just because of how deep their roster is.
There it is, folks. Jack in the back, hit the nail on the head. How was the vibe opening night, Jack? Didn't you know anybody that went down to the game? A little tough Sunday draw. It's a tough one.
I did not. The only one I heard was Gill when he was talking about it. I don't know anybody else that's gone. But
yeah, that's a tough one. Sunday opening night, Philly botched that one. I don't know. The NBA botched that one. The Sixers haven't opened on a Monday or Tuesday night. This was a really good team in the Eastern Conference last year. I get it. There's money. There's different things involved, but some of these things like MLB playoffs, games starting at 2:00 in the afternoon, and like I get it. There's different coasts and time zones and all that. I understand that, but I don't understand, make it easy for families. That's the future. I understand it's all TV deals and whatever I could say right now about trying to justify the hearts and the minds and the souls of big people in business. I get it, but I don't know. That always throws me off, Jack. Throws me off. The 4:25. Now, what Eagles start do you like best, Jack, as we move to the Eagles here in a little bit? What's start time? Or what day of the week? You like Thursday night, like Monday night? You like the 1 to 4 or night window?
From a pure making sure I catch a glimpse of every game, I love them in prime time. Just for the sense, I'm going to watch the game anyways. That way, I don't have to dual screen it on Sunday afternoon. I can just red zone it, and then that game's already taken care of, and I watch it in its full entirety with the rest of America. I mean, that's pretty much how it's going to be for the rest of the season anyways. I think they only have one, if not none, 1:00 games for the rest of the season. I mean, they're all 4:25 or prime time the rest of the way. 4:25 is a compromise I can live with. It's just like 3 or 4 other games going on at the same time. 1:00, you still get the 8-game flood. So that's how I prefer it.
That's Jack Connell. I'm Colin Thompson here on the Colin Thompson Show, brought to you by Not For Long Media. One of our newest sponsors that I'm really excited to talk about, Northrop Realty, Missy Miller Aldave, and their team at Northrop Realty has been fantastic. The house we're sitting in now, Missy was a part of. That's why we're sitting here today talking with this wonderful Wi-Fi in this beautiful home above me. Shout out to Missy and her team. Listen, email Missy. You can go to their website, www.millerteam.com. Annapolis, Baltimore, really Northrop works with people all over the country. We've talked to Missy about houses in Cape May. We talked to Missy about houses in Florida. They're located right outside of Baltimore. If you're in the area and you want to work with her or her team, Northrop Realty has been fantastic to work with. Whether we're trying to put a bid on a house or buy a house or learn more about certain areas, Miller Aldave, I always get it confused because it's Missy Miller Aldave, but that's her maiden name. It's the Miller team. Check them out. Again, millerteam.com for more information. Awesome people down there. All right, we transition to the trade deadline. Bunch of teams made trades across the league, keeping it in the NFC East, if you will. Giants moved Leonard Williams. I'll be honest, I was shocked they didn't move Saquon Barkley. I think Saquon is a generational talent. I think Saquon deserves every dollar in the world. I hope they give it to him. I really do. He's a great player, and that Giants franchise is first class. But if you're not going to give it to him and you don't trade him, what are you doing? I think that's where I'm at. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, time will tell. Who else made moves in the division? Cowboys didn't make a trade. Washington, massive trades in moving, Sweat and Young, 2 stalwarts, 2 high draft picks, 2 generational type defensive ends. I think Sweat, Jack, he'll go. It's like a sign and trade. You see him in hockey a lot. I think he signs a big deal with Chicago. I think they ink him up. They have a bunch of cap space. They need to bolster their defense. They need to bolster the lines. They'll go out. They didn't really give up a big pick for him. Second-round pick, my opinion. I don't think he's a really good player. So your little snarky face over there, Jack, you don't think so? You wouldn't trade second-round pick for a Pro Bowl?
No,
type player?
I'm disagreeing with saying it wasn't a high pick. I mean, that pick's projected to be the 33rd overall pick in the draft, or 34th.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I am wrong. That little snarky face is the right face. That's a high pick. I get that. They have a ton of draft capital. I'm sure they can trade up and get somewhere in that move again. It's a good point. So that's like the division, what was moved around. Obviously, Young going to the Niners and all that. If you want to hear more about the national opinions that Jack and I are going to have, you can listen to Andrew Siciliano, which will come out Tuesday night as well. These will both come out, kind of a Philly show, and then we're going to have a league-wide show. We're going to get into more details. But right now, we're just talking Eagles. Jack, the Eagles, and you're muted here, so your dogs are probably barking. Eagles didn't make any moves on the trade deadline. We talked about last week on the show, the move they made for the safety, of course, is slipping my mind right now. I sat next to him every day at the NFL media. Kevin Byard, thank you. For Kev, who I think is a great addition. Are you shocked the Eagles didn't make a move, Jack?
No, the one thing I was interested is who they were linked to. I saw a report. I'm forgetting who put it out there, but I did see the Eagles were one of the 4 teams poking around at Jalen Johnson, the cornerback out of Chicago, which I thought was super interesting about the fact because he's young, he wants a big contract. So I mean, it's a Montez Sweat situation in the sense that whoever's going to trade for him is probably going to give a big contract when they get here. But Philly's already got, Darius Slay's, I think, on like a 1 or 2 year contract, but they're throwing big money at James Bradbury. Avonte Maddox already on a hefty contract. That one just surprised me, unless they just did like almost like a Gardner Johnson. Just they let him ball out for half a season and let him get his money in free agency. But that was the one that was kind of interesting. Besides that, there's no room to improve. Like they didn't need defensive line. Like defensive line help's always good. It's not, they didn't need like a Montez Sweat, Chase Young addition to that group. There's really nothing else you could say they needed.
Do the Niners need to make that move too?
The Niners, they're not as deep as the Eagles, though, on the defensive line.
No,
who else they have on the edge outside of who is behind Armstead and Boza? Like Randy Gregory, who I don't really know who else.
Cleveland Farrell. But yeah, I hear you. Depth-wise, the Eagles have more depth. Now the front 4, they have the best front 4 in the league, I would assume.
The thing that surprises me about that trade too with Chase Young, I was reading, so because they traded a 3rd-round pick and he's still in that rookie contract, they would get a compensatory pick. I think they still get a 3rd-round pick if he walks. So the 49ers, I don't know the stipulation, but the 49ers would basically just move down 25 spots in the draft if they let go of Chase Young for having him for half a season.
So why are more teams involved in this? Like if I'm the Eagles, why wouldn't I make that move?
I have no idea. I wish
you don't have enough room. They'd have to cut somebody, right? Like they'd have to cut who are they going to cut?
Yeah. If they I could see maybe like Derek Barnett was somebody flirted that says somebody that they could trade. I could see a world if they let Derek Barnett go, if they moved him somewhere for a 4th, 5th round pick, them doing that because they also have another pick. But with Barnett staying, there's really no room for him.
He's a great depth defensive end. Obviously the numbers haven't been there for him for 1st-round pick, but I've gone against him. I think he's a good player. I'll tell you what, a player I watched last week that I didn't talk about on the Mike Gill show today was I watched the tape. Sidney Brown flies around. I haven't really watched a ton of him. I'll be honest. I was like, who is this guy? He flies around, Jack. Like he's involved in every play. He's a good player.
Yeah, the one thing, like with how much Philly loves a certain style of defensive player, you would think Sidney Brown would be loved more by this general. Not that saying he's disliked, but he's might be outside of that defensive line the hardest hitter on this team. He
scoots around. You notice him on tape, and that's the player who's making it in the league. Like the guys on special teams are like, oh wow, I noticed that guy. Let me give him Sam Franklin in Carolina. He's a starting safety now. Like never projected to be a starting safety ever coming out of college. I sure thought he would be, but I saw him every day, right? Got to know the guy. I got to know what he was made of. I think that's another flaw in scouting, that you don't really get to know what guys are made of until like they're in your building for 4 or 5 years and you're like, wow, we just got to steal. But yes, Sidney Brown, man, like, I don't know. Dude impresses me. For to be a 3rd round pick, 66 overall out of Illinois, that dude's going to have a hell of an NFL career. I haven't watched him. I'll watch him now all year long. But the way he flies around, super impressive. I wasn't shocked the Eagles didn't do anything. Obviously, the big move last week at the safety position. I've spoken at length about that before. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. But the team's stacked. The team's loaded. They have depth in every position. Doesn't surprise me, Jack. It really doesn't. All right, Birds have who? Dallas this week, Jackie? Yeah, we'll see. WealthAdvisoryServices.com. You don't know him, you should. WealthAdvisoryServices.com. Paul Krumanacker, their staff there, Doylestown and Cape May, New Jersey. They work with clients all over the country. My friends in the NFL. Someone's ringing my door, Jack. I mean, in the NFL, we have, coaches in college football that all work with Krumanacker and their team. People that we just knew growing up with that have just done me so well, my family so well. Wealth Advisory Services, your financial advisor, home buying, you name it. They're a part of it. It's Halloween, Jack. Are you dressing up tonight, pal?
No, I was never a costume person. We talked about this last year. I hate costumes.
You look like a costume guy. I feel like you're a guy that goes like a Renaissance festival or something, with like.
I mean, they got really. I had to go to one like a middle school field trip. Like they got really good turkey legs.
I could see you like with the big medieval like jugs and like the big turkey legs and the weird hats and like you like telling people to like regard or something like that, with some voice. I can just see that. Regard me.
I have no costume enjoyment at all. I hate it. I hate dressing. Like I do it, but like I hate like dressing up. Like it's something I got to get over.
What do you think about the Birds this week against Dallas?
I think it's going to be tough. I'm really excited to watch Micah Parsons. There's nothing else like him, really. So I think it's going to be a really close game. Of course, every person in Philadelphia said, oh, it's going to be a close. My favorite, it's like, have you ever seen that SNL skit where it's like they're talking about the Bears and they're like, oh, it's going to be a close one. 85-14, the Bears. That's how I feel every person in Philadelphia is like, oh, Dallas is a good team this year. But, we'll pull up by 25. We'll be good. But I mean, Dallas could sneak this one, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it's going to be very close. Dallas is very good. The thing is, they are very streaky in their games. It seems like they either win by 30 or they lose by 30.
This is the least hyped Dallas-Philly game I've ever been a part of, I think. Now, again, I don't live in Philly, but usually it's like, man, Dallas week, you feel it. I just don't. You don't know what you're getting in Dallas. Like, we're going to be way more hype around the Niners. Be way more hype around the Bills. And you can argue those games are kind of irrelevant, really. Like, if the Eagles keep winning, they're going to have home field advantage in the number 1 seed. Yeah. The Bills are in the AFC. The Chiefs are in the AFC. Like, those games are going to be massive. And Dallas has a good record, and they're a good team this year. So
it's weird that nobody's talking about the murderer's row of a schedule the Eagles have over the next month. I mean, you're talking about outside of Baltimore, possibly 4 of the best teams in football this season. Like, it's crazy. I mean, you're at the point where it's like you could come out of that stretch 1-3 and feel good about your team because that's how good their upcoming group is.
We'll see. Interesting stuff ahead. Jack's right. Got a hell of a schedule moving forward for the Eagles. I think the division did get weaker, though, with Dallas moving on from Leonard Williams. Obviously, we talked about Sweat and Young moving on from Washington. Like, those are like key pillars to teams, like literally top 5 players on both of those teams out the door. That is major, major impact. We'll see what happens. Fun stuff. Come see us at San Boner Tailgate. Let me know if you're in Philly this weekend for the Temple game. It's a Philly weekend, Jack. Jack will be there too as a San Boner. No. Enjoy the Mike Gill interview, 97.3 ESPN. Thank you to the Missy Miller team, millerteam.com. Check them out if you're into real estate stuff in the area, looking for a property, rental, etc., asking questions about Annapolis and just really anywhere. Wealth Advisory Services. If you don't know them, you should. Fudge Kitchen, fudgekitchens.com. SeatGeek, promo code Colin Thompson for $20 off your seat. $50 or more. That's Jack Connell. I'm Colin Thompson. Appreciate Mike Gill joining the Colin Thompson Show.
It's won 7 games, and you might like where they look. And, about 3 weeks ago, we thought the 49ers were the favorite in the NFC side of it. They've lost 3 in a row. You look at the Dallas Cowboys had a nice win. So I would look at the NFC East, and it'd be the Eagles. It'd be the Cowboys, and in the North, obviously, it's going to be the Lions. In the South, you pick who you want in the South. I mean, you can pick that one out. And in the West, I'm going to go with the 49ers and the Seahawks. So I mean, that's kind of how it all lays out for me on the NFC side. The AFC, there's a couple other teams, but I think at the end, these are the teams we're going to see in the playoffs.
That was Herm Edwards this morning telling us his favorite teams in the NFC. Colin Thompson, NFL tight end, the Colin Thompson Show, not for long media. Colin, as the Eagles are set to hit the toughest portion of their schedule, let's take a look at that because they have gotten to the 8th week of the season at 7-1. They are the top team in the NFC. But as they get ready to hit this streak of games with Dallas and San Francisco and Kansas City and Buffalo and Dallas again and Seattle, how do you rank the NFC teams through 8 weeks?
Really great question, Mike. I think Philly's at the top. I think this whole narrative that the Niners are falling from the sky, to me, is not true. That's a really talented roster, great coach team. I think they've lost, 4 regular season games in the last 2 seasons. Like Brock Purdy's, he didn't lose until this year. How would I rank them? It's a great question, Mike. I'd go Eagles 1. I like Niners 2. I like Seattle at 3.
Wow.
I like the home field advantage in the playoffs. I like the home field advantage throughout the regular season. That place is absolutely brutal to play at. Let's see, who else would be up there?
Detroit?
I like Detroit at 4, and I'll go Dallas at 5. I would put Minnesota at 5. But obviously with the Kirk Cousins situation, I think Detroit was a second-half team. That team is loaded with
Dobbs today, by the way, Minnesota.
Yeah, we saw the Dobbs trade. They also traded their left guard, Ezra Cleveland, who I thought was a pretty good player. They went to Jacksonville. They added some depth there. So they were kind of buyers and sellers. They're still going to stay relevant. They have some premier players on that team. So that would be my 5. Eagles 1, Niners 2. I like Seattle. Detroit I love. Don't get me wrong. Love their run game, like how they go and do it. But
Seattle made a great deal yesterday.
Sorry?
Seattle made a great deal getting Leonard Williams yesterday.
From the Giants, I played against Leonard in the All-American game coming out of high school. I played against Leonard in the NFL, 2021, the Giants, and he is a moose. I mean, that's a win. The Eagles O-linemen are happy, right? No matter O-linemen, players, D-linemen, whatever, receivers, they're not worried about the teams. They're worried about who you're facing. So when a player, God forbid, gets injured early in the season, you don't have to face him anymore. You're like, okay, that's nice. Or when a player gets traded out of division like that, that's nice. So he's a monster player. So that was a good move for the Giants. I'm surprised they didn't move on from Saquon. I am. I don't have inside sources.
They have a little time. They got some time.
I love that organization. They were so good to me. Unbelievable. Through injury, they were first class. So, but my question is why wouldn't you? He has his most value right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, 2-6, they're struggling. The quarterback situation, obviously, Jones signs a deal. He gets hurt. Now Taylor gets hurt. This seems like it's a rudderless ship in New York right now. An area, Montez Sweat, he's in Chicago now, one of your former teams, by the way. But why does Washington seem to match up so well with the Eagles? You watch that tape. We look at the tape breakdown, CT, the Colin Thompson Show. Why does Washington match up well with the Eagles all the time?
It's the same answer to why the Jets matched up well with the Eagles. I mean, Sam Howell's having a better season than obviously Wilson up there, but they're built similar. They have weapons on the outside, the Jets, and so do Washington offensively. Run game wise, Washington's a little bit more of a committee, but I mean, Breece Hall's a good player. Dalvin Cook barely gets any reps. Flip it over to the other side. Jets defensive line is really good. Well, who's probably the next best D line in the league other than the Eagles? Washington. Doesn't really matter. Even what?
Yesterday, they just traded Sweat, so they take a hit. Yeah.
They take a major hit. And Bryce Young could be out, too. This is recording at 2:30. Trade deadline. Yeah. Sorry. So my point to that all, Mike, is that combination of like the good run game with the skill players on the outside and then a really good defensive line, offensive line, right? They're okay in Washington at times. But for Hal to throw like that, they had to play pretty damn well. Hassan Reddick, of course.
I guess the big question is, and this is where like your background comes into play, would be great for the listeners, is okay, all week long, Sam Howell sacked 40 times. He's on pace to get sacked 80 times. What do the Eagles do? They win up front all the time. So when you say Washington matches up with Philly, but there's one area where you think there's a decided advantage and they're unable to take advantage of that advantage.
It's a great point, and that's football. That's my only boring answer I can give to you. Like, I'd love to give you this experience I've had of playing 7 years professional and 5 years in college, but like at the end of the day, like sometimes you go out there and they're scheming it up. They chip the heck out of the defensive ends for the Eagles. They're double teaming inside. I think too, Mike, like we talked about yesterday on the Sam Boner show, is if you could keep games close, defensive ends can't pin their ears back and just go rush the passer. But like the Eagles have been like beating teams bad. I mean, there's been some close games. Don't get me wrong, but when the Bucks are down 2 scores against the Eagles, well, what are they going to do? They have to throw the ball. So I think that allows the defensive line to eat a little bit more. And Washington's had an up and down year. So Washington, of course, right? They lead the league in letting up sacks. They've had to throw the ball to come back into games. It was a close game, and that's why I think those games are always good because they're close. You never see like this heroic play by D lineman. You see him by wideouts like Jalen Brown.
Colin Thompson from the Colin Thompson Show on Not For Long Media is here on the Sports Bash. The Eagles secondary, almost 400 yards against Sam Howell, but they played well against Miami. They only gave up 10 points in that game. So who are they against Dallas?
Oh, great. Another great loaded question. Mike Gill Show. It's such a week-to-week league. I hate to say that because, like, Miami, you're like, man, it's going to be a track meet. Eagles better hold on for dear life. Then they trade for Byard, and then they let up 400-some yards. It's not on Byard. It's not on certain players. It's just based off of how things are going, too. Let's go back. The Eagles really were blowing out Miami. Like, Miami only scored on that really one play to Tyreek, and then offensively, I think they had a field goal, and that was about it. So the Eagles were scoring kind of at will at times against Miami. The game was a little bit out of reach, so that's forcing Tua and their offense to be less dynamic. Like, let's go back to the Miami game. How many times the announcers are like, they're a C-gap running team, and then they couldn't get to the C-gaps because the sun was just blowing it up and Sweat was just blowing it up. So sometimes it takes like a couple things, like the combination of like the scheme.
By the
like,
way, Chase Young has been traded to the 49ers.
Wow.
Just breaking a couple minutes ago I didn't mean to interrupt you, but he is going to the Niners for a mid-round pick in 2024 from Ann Rappaport, Jay Glazer, and others.
Wow. So breaking news here on the Mike Gill Show, 97.3 ESPN. I mean, okay, so to answer your question, I think it's a week-to-week league. It's based off a scheme with Washington, how they wanted to address it, and then Miami addressed it that way. It didn't work. Washington adjusted, and they were able to take advantage of it. Now on to the trade. I could argue that Sweat was better than Young from personal experience blocking them both. Now, Young was a rookie when I played him. Great dude, by the way, like blew me away, his maturity at a young age, like after the game and talking to him, shaking hands, like really good guy. Sweat is like super long and like physical, like run game and can rush the passer. I think Chicago is probably going to sign him and then, they traded for him and then sign him to a long-term deal, maybe franchise tag him. Like they're trying to win next year. I like that move for them. It's aggressive. The Niners getting Young. Oh boy. I mean, that's major implications to their D-line, major implication to their team. This is a number 1 overall pick. They already have a number 1 overall pick on the D-line too. They have a couple first rounders on that D-line. Oh, I don't know, Mike. That's a breathtaking move to me. Like, we know we're legit. We're on a bye week, the Niners, but we're still going to make some big noise. That will be the move of the day for sure. Wow.
Big time move. It just happened literally as we're having the conversation here on the Sports Bash Live with Colin Thompson, NFL tight end, Not For Long Media. The Colin Thompson Show is where you can find out find his work, of course. All right, Eagles run game. What are you seeing there as you watch the tape? And do you think watching them, they need to explore adding a running back between the time you answer this question and 4 o'clock today?
I don't think so. I think they have a stable of them, and they have one that's inactive that people like too in Penny. That's the approach in modern football and salary cap football, right? Like, how many more players can you add to this team, right? Like the Niners, I don't know how they added Chase Young. Probably the Washington's got to keep a lot of the salary cap. That's what the Bears had, Sweat do. So I don't think so, Mike. I don't. I think it's running back by committee. It's been that way in Philly. That's how he's approached the entire time. I wouldn't question.
Why do you think Penny has not been on the field but 3 carries?
There's something there, right? Like there's something there, whether it's special team.
Just to you, isn't Gainwell, Scott, and Swift somewhat repetitive?
Yeah. They're all similar. I think DeAndre's the best of the 3 and the most polished of the 3. He's the highest drafted of the 3. He's got the biggest ceiling. He can run through you, around you, catch the ball, jump over you. He's got that now, right? Wear and tear. He's had injuries in his career. I understand that. I like Gainwell. They all can catch the ball in the backfield. They all are quick. They all want to. I think that's what I'm saying. So I think that's good. Like that checks a box to me. That checks a box. That's a good group. They all can go in and pass protect and be willing to do that. Like, but that team is this. The Eagles are this. Oh, they're a running football team. Yeah, they're a running football team because people got to play too high safety because their wideouts and their tight ends are so good. And I know we'll get into that in a little bit. But when you have Jalen and Smith and Goddard and Julio Jones, I'm like, what are you going to play coverage wise? You have to play some sort of too high safety shell. Well, what's that do? That's going to weaken your front. And that's why the Eagles have taken advantage up front because Jalen can run, and you're going to see Jalen run, whether he's nicked up or not, as this season moves on. I just think right now the committee is the approach, and I think that's the best thing for the Eagles salary cap wise. And also, like, there's only one ball. How many more guys can you get on this offense?
A lot of people ask, why Gainwell? Why do they go to Gainwell like in the fourth quarter? It seems that he's like the guy to like run the game out, like, I don't know. To me, that's not what his role would be. If that's not the style of back he seems to be. Is, hey, we need you to kind of finish this game out.
Yeah, we talked about LeGarrette Blount too on the show yesterday, and he got signed by the practice squad in Buffalo. There's a reason why.
Leonard Fournette.
What'd I say?
You said LeGarrette Blount.
Wow, man, I'm a mess. There's so many names in these trades and all these free agents. I can't keep up with it. Yes, Leonard Fournette, Big Lenny went there with Latavius
Murray.
Yeah, with Latavius Murray, another power back too. So, and they're built kind of similar to the offense in Buffalo, how they run here in Philly. So that's a great. I don't know, Mike. I mean, Howie's no dummy. That's what I'll say. I think everyone should trust him. People do. I think they're all on a pitch count. So you see Gainwell because maybe Swift had a couple big runs or whatever it may be, and he's the hot hand. They just like press who's hot. I think that's how it goes.
Do you think it's a possibility? This seems so bizarre that they're just keeping Penny on the shelf so that he does, because he's always hurt. He's always hurt. So let's just get him till like after the bye week, and then we'll activate him and have him for the second half. Is that a possibility? Have you ever seen something like that in your time in the league?
I'm trying to think of an exact example, but sure, there could be something there. We're going to give you the reps. We don't need you right now. We have a committee approach. You're a part of the committee. That was the sales pitch. What's up?
But stay healthy.
Yeah, but stay healthy. We're not getting hit in practice anyway, right?
Keep your body right.
Yeah, keep it right, Mike. Hit the bike a little bit. Stay out of Chickies and all those bars down
there. A.J. Brown, historic what he's doing right now. But how's he match up with the Dallas secondary? Do they take him out, or is somebody else due for the big game against this Dallas secondary?
I mean, it's a Rolodex here with Philly. I mean, obviously, AJ, he's going to get his because they're creating ways to get him the ball now. I mean, they're starting him at wide out, and he's wrapping behind the O-line, and they're dumping it to him for a quick little 6 yards, the first play of the game last week. You're like, well, that's interesting. Then they're throwing fade balls to him. He's running every single route, and he could take any route and go the distance and or make you pay for it, like almost like a physical tight end. So he's going to get his. But how are they going to handle everybody else? I mean, that's the thing with the Sixers. It's like a basketball team lining 5 wide. It's like, who are you going to take away? And are you okay with, Smith and Goddard, Julio in the red zone, like them beating you? Or you're going to say, you know what, we're going to make Jalen throw it. We're going to stop the run. Like Dan Quinn's a really smart man, smart defensive coordinator. What's he going to have? They're going to bring something different. What's it going to be? Third down, how are you going to stop Parsons, right? There's a lot of great questions there, but I think Brown's going to get his, Mike, because they're feeding him the ball now, and they're finding ways to get it to him in space, like a forced throw, like throw it to him no matter what.
Oh, Dallas, same thing. CeeDee Lamb has every catch. The next guy is Jake Ferguson with like 20 catches on that team. So both these offenses are very reliant on their top guy. The Eagles, though, have Smith. They do have Goddard, which I think is a little bit more than what Dallas offers in their pass game. Last one for Colin Thompson from the Colin Thompson Show on Not For Long Media. Micah Parsons, we know he's a game wrecker. What's the best way to game plan for him? Do you run right at him? The Eagles have done a good job in the past of kind of putting him in coverage, running at him. So what do you look at Brian Johnson this week in the film room watching Parsons? What's the plan?
Facing great players, to me, you go right at them. You have to, because they're going to chase the play down from behind and either strip the ball out. They're going to not, bite on a boot fake, and then the quarterback gets crushed. Son Reddick, you've seen him do that, right? Like, so to me, I'm running at him. And the nice thing is the Eagles have the two best tackles in the game as a combination together in Mailata and Johnson. Like, they're big and they can cover him up where some teams may not have that. They also move really well too. So the Eagles are the perfect match for him. Now they have some better interior guys in Dallas than they've had in the past. How do you stop them, Mike? You can't be in third and long, right? And you're going to see the Eagles, I think, play with some tempo. That's a great way to tire a defense out. They have some pass rushers there in Dallas. They have a good defense. They have some good players, and Dan Quinn, he's always up for head coaching job. So you got to stay ahead of the chains, all that boring stuff. Have tempo, and I think that's a good way to keep him having those reps of that third and long opportunity to get home.
Colin Thompson, everybody. Not For Long Media, the Colin Thompson Show. We break down the film and what to watch for. Eagles, Dallas this week, right here on 97.3 ESPN. Watch him on Not For Long Media on all their social media platforms. All right, man. We'll see you, bud.